Hello, hello. Harry Tangye here. Nice to see you all. Thank you for turning up. I just see a couple of comments coming on already. Welcome. If you don't already subscribe to the channel, hit the bell if you want to be notified when this is on. We're nearly up to 3,000 followers, which is phenomenal in the time that I've been doing it. So really, thanks ever so much for that. I've got to change this thing. This thing here. It's a commendation, and it's very mediocre. It's not even a Chief Constable's. I just needed to fill space, you see. This is the problem. That there. I need to fill that space. So I thought I might put a picture of my dog on it. I mean, some other cops, right? They've got... It's all falling apart now. That's my milkman's hat. Some other cops have got like 12 commendations. It's incredibly impressive. They've obviously been very brave and being noticed being very brave, which is really important as well. So welcome anyway. Yeah, please subscribe to the channel, Harry Tangye. And if you want to support it, or you just want to read really good book, that's get the money bit out of the way there, because that's the only money I make from this at the moment. Selling every day. They're selling loads of those every day still, which is brilliant, seeing as I published it in April. It is... it's everything, starting from when I was a little kid in Cornwall making pipe bombs out of scaffolding tubes and weed killer and sugar and blowing things up and completely breaching the Terrorism Act, to sort of growing up, half growing up, hunting rabbits when I was 14 and making pencil cases that rotted in my class, and I was asked to remove it. And then joining the police, really, and all the best bits, the funniest bits, the saddest bits, just all those stories that I just kept remembering, and so I put them in there, and it was a #1 bestseller on Amazon for police type bookie type things. So good, Aidan. I'll answer your question in a minute, but what a week it's been. More riots, but this one is a more sort of, the police aren't such bad now because it didn't involve women. It's basically what it is. I mean, I'm not going to go into the the one last week that I've already talked about that, and I've said my opinions on that. But still, the public in this equal opportunities age do not like seeing people trussed up, handcuffed, if they're a woman. And yet we are insisting that we're the same as men. So why should they worry so much if that woman has been committing offences? But hey, that's where we are at the moment. It just shows we're not quite there yet. And I think men and women are different. And I think we should embrace those differences. They're certainly not disadvantages. We're just different. So, but yeah, the Bristol protest. So this was a protest, wasn't it? That was... So it was a 500 complete anarchists. Just when they were asked at the scene what they were actually there for, they couldn't answer. And to be honest, I know very little about it. It's the police sentencing bill. It's about 100 pages long. I haven't read it because I've got a life, and I can see the problems at the moment, because they are sort of, the problem is what they don't want. I think the Conservatives have dumped it. The government has dumped everything into one big thing. So if you say, no, I don't like that bit, you're saying no to it all. And it's a good leverage to say, So I can see why there's some restraint for it. My problem is with protests, and I promise I'll answer your questions in a minute, Aidan. The problems we got at the protests in the old days when I was a bit younger, right? So those who don't know, yeah, I've been in the job 30 years, police. For 30 years, I was left in April, and I was on armed response traffic, and I was answering 999, not answering them, but going to 999 calls, and till the week I left, so frontline all the time on all the shifts. So I pretty much know. I've been in a lot of people's houses of different classes. I've dealt with a lot of death and destruction and misery and being poor and that side of things. And I know when people are just, they're not really helping themselves, or they don't know how to help themselves. And so I do feel as though I can say it from a sort of a bird's eye view, or a witness's view from within these places. Not always right, and I'd like to be educated on stuff. A lot of the time I find with the media and with the narratives going around, people aren't interested. Like food banks, for example. Why is it some can afford to not have food banks and some can? Can we delve into that? Can we look into the details? Is it really bad budgeting, or is it because they haven't got council house, they're having to do private, therefore they pay far more rent, therefore they haven't got that much enough for food, and because of other circumstances? No one gets into the detail, and I'd love to know the detail because I want to know why. I want to know the truth, as opposed to, some people who say food banks are, well, they're socially acceptable, so of course everyone goes to them and they'll save their money, some money on food. I'm sure some go to that. I'm sure some go because they literally wouldn't have anything to eat that day. Otherwise, I don't know. But I don't know. We don't know these things, do we? So I just wish a bit more investigative journalism to find out. That's what we're missing at the moment. Protests at the moment. I can arrange a protest tomorrow. If I have enough followers or I have enough things, I can say, right, meet outside the town hall, 2:00. We're going to kick backside. Bring your rage. And 3 people would turn up with my following, no doubt. But it's a lot easier than what it used to be. And this is the problem. This is what the government is saying. Look, we can't afford this anymore. A protest now it can be sorted the next day. Come to London. It's always London. Mass population around it. It's the centre. It gets the press. And of course, then it sort of means you can pop it up like that and the police can't prepare for it. And of course, they do them sporadic little meets of protests everywhere, and they're very difficult to deal with. And they've got rid of all the police. So I'll tell you now, you've got far, far less public order and trained public order than you used to. And Bristol, it showed that. You've got a lot of inexperienced young police officers who probably have never witnessed violence like that. And you've got broken ribs, broken arms, policing. 7 arrested, because that is not the time to arrest people. Because if you arrest someone, that's 2 officers gone off the street, and you need them there because you need to put up against the violence that is occurring. And you could see why they just had to go, do you know what? We can't do anything. They blocked it off with loads of vans, and they just waited until mutual aid arrived. And that was when reinforcements come, including Devon and Cornwall, the southwest, all the way around Bristol. Mutual aid coming, and then they cleared the streets. And it just shows what could have happened in the old days when we had police resources, we had experienced sergeants, experienced streetwise inspectors. And now it's all about degrees and all that. And we need degrees, but not just degrees. And you've got very inexperienced people, and they're looking around, and there's no mature, seasoned sergeants who will be able to hold them and say, Dads and Asses, we're all right. We're doing all right. Okay, right. Clear the streets. Batons out. They don't bring batons along just to lean on. They are there for a reason. And yet, when the public see that, they're like, "Oh, this is terrible. The police are beating people." But they're not. How many injuries on these protesters? I only saw injuries on people who were jumping on cars and fell off. That was funny, wasn't it? When he slipped off. But anyway, so that's the problem with protests at the moment. Do you know how much Extinction Rebellion protests last year in London cost the taxpayer? You people out there, the taxpayer, how much did it cost to police that? Not alone in the amount of lost lives, because there were people being stabbed around London and there weren't the police officers there. Guess why? Because they were in the centre of London trying to police Extinction Rebellion, where they were having all their lock-ons and things. 34 million quid. 34 million quid. Bristol riot. 500 main antagonists. £1 million. What does it prove? Well, when you ask the people who were involved, they didn't know why they were there. I am not denying for a moment that you have your peaceful protesters who turn up initially. This is how it always goes. It's like the vigil. Peaceful protesters turn up. 6 hours of peacefulness. 10 police officers just splattered around. Just randomly, no issues. And then the idiots arrive. And the trouble is, the public and the press have got to get a little bit wise to this. There's a rhythm here. There's a system here. And it's like the Bristol protests. If you look at it initially, they're sort of relatively like family members. Yeah, the argument of whether they should be there or not, no, it shouldn't be theirs, but they feel it's their rights. I'm not going to condemn that. If they really feel that that's their rights could be going and they need to protest, because, that's fine if you're damn well peaceful. And then the idiots arrive. And by the way, I don't call peaceful shouting in the face of a police officer, literally spitting with rage at them. That's not peaceful. That's being an arse. Right. thank you for my annual counselling session, my weekly counselling session. Aidan, let's put this one up. Aidan, some questions for me. First, what's it like becoming a police officer? Doing your 2 years whilst becoming an AO? Right, first of all, join as a police officer, learn to be a brilliant police officer, learn to be brilliant at the most mediocre tasks that you're given, and the best and the most complicated high-profile tasks you're given. And then you'll be noticed. And then if you're good enough, you will be put forward to the armed response. And I'm saying realistically, technically after 2 years you can join, realistically probably 3, 4. And probably you won't feel ready once you're in because you realize you're learning policing skills. ARV is not a security guard with a gun. All right, you need to know all those laws and powers because you're usually first on the scene to a lot of stuff. To a lot of the high-end violent stuff, they'll send the ARVs first, especially when you're in like a city or something where you are, you know, it's relatively short distances to get to places. So don't join the police because you want to be ARV. Join the police because you want to be police officer. And then I'd like to specialise within that when I'm a great police officer to be ARVs. That's the key thing. That's the key thing. So it's brilliant because you're learning, you're busy bee. I like the idea of both traffic and ARV. Well, in Devon and Cornwall, we were both because we were lucky enough to have less gun crime. We certainly had enough, believe it or not. Certainly knives, little kidnappings here and there, a lot of drugs world type thing that are coming in from county lines and from London and things like this sort of thing. So we would have some pretty decent jobs. And then, of course, a lot of mental health, you know, and there's a lot of shotguns down in Devon and Cornwall. So people get angry and they carry a shotgun and they want to shoot someone. That's when we get called. So these are the sort of things. So we were traffic as well. So that's why I specialised as a senior investigating officer. They call it lead investigation officer of fatal road traffic collisions. So I must have been to over 150 of them. There's a YouTube footage of me somewhere. If you search learn to live, number 2, live Harry, and then you'll see my black and white YouTube thing of fatal. I went to double fatal, and it just explains that side of things. And so I was really keen on that because I felt that we did this thing. Learn to live is where you go in early to universities and colleges, and you get to people just as they're starting to drive, and you empower them to actually start thinking, there's a lot of us type people dying in cars. We can actually stop that and do something about it. So traffic, loved it. ARVs, because remember, ARVs, you're not going to be shooting your gun all the time. You're going to be doing police work in the meantime. All right. So Dan Evans. Well, that's quite scary because Dan Evans is a chief superintendent in Devon and Cornwall Police. So anyway, so I doubt it would be him, but Dan Evans, you've got a big name to follow because he is one of the top guys, absolutely top man in the firearms world. What are your tips to getting into the ARVs, or in that case, General Police Force? Be practical. If you're very young, if you're doing cadets, do cadets. Even if it's air cadets, army cadets, do the cadets you want to do. If you get in the police cadets, that's fine. But do you know what? It doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter which. Just do something that you're doing. You're going out there and doing stuff. In this time where it's very difficult to get a job, if you're lucky enough to get a job in a supermarket, which my son has managed to do for all of this COVID. So he was the only key worker in our house after I retired in April. And he didn't let me forget that. But do something like work in a charity shop, even if it's every other week, to show that you're dealing with strange members of the public, you know, of all different ages and backgrounds, and you're dealing with sort of confrontation when they come back and they say, "This has broken my charity 15p teaspoon with the Queen's head on the end, and I want my money back," and that side of things as well. So that was very stereotypical charity shop complaint, wasn't it? So, but do that sort of thing and do practical. Duke of Edinburgh, if you can do it, just to prove that when you're asked the question, what did you do in COVID then that was different from sitting behind your computer playing games all day? And they won't be too sympathetic if you say, well, there's no jobs, were there? So I didn't have a choice. if you say, well, yeah, I bought a bike and I started getting fit on my bikes, and then I got into, extending that side of things, or paddleboarding or whatever, or just do something, and then clubs, that side of things. All right, show you're getting out there and you're doing stuff. Specials is a really good one. You're non-paid, you learn all the laws, and you put uniform, you've got all the powers of the police officer. You're guided through very gently. It's a really good way of finding out whether you want, if it suits you, and whether you see it. And so if you're in a job as well, if you're quite mature, and you're in a job and you think, I'm going to have to take a big pay cut. So 40-year-olds, for example, maybe on 40 grand, and they're going to have to go down to 23 grand. Well, specials is a good thing to decide. Do you want that full time? After 5 years, you pretty much bumps up to 30 grand or more. So get through the first 5 years. That's the thing. I will try to answer these a little bit quicker. PFOA. Evening, Harry. Thanks for all you're doing, mate. Mark Williams. I'm very flattered. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Firearms Federation. Let's see if I can get you up. Brilliant people. Because a lot at the moment, there's a lot of stress out there. There's 169 suicides in policing by police officers in the last, I think it's eight years. Okay, some people, if you take that with the general public, with the amount of officers there are, that's going to be the case. There's a lot of police officers with mental health, especially. Do you know what I get a lot from private messages and speaking to people is they're going to the scenes that others wouldn't even dream they would need to believe exists. But they also are getting that drip of distrust and hate from the media, the public, and that side of things. It's that. And the problem we've got at the moment is officers are telling me they're afraid to put hands on to detain someone, arrest someone, because someone's videoing and they don't feel they're going to get the backup. Police officers, the bosses are apologizing for far too much. Stop apologizing, please. Don't apologize on behalf of officers because the arrest looked untidy. Arrests look untidy. And if you have, like I was saying before, a woman and she is screaming and shouting, the amount of negative press that will accrue from an officer just doing their job to detain someone, from an audience that have no idea necessarily of how many times have I heard, look, this officer, she hadn't even done anything, is all you hear, right? You don't know. We don't just jump on people and arrest them for nothing. And it's that drip of we need to turn this round. And it's a massive society thing that if you want the police that you've got and all the complaints about aggressive, abusive police officers or whatever, have a look. I've seen them do nothing more than sort of pushing their way through a crowd to get to the bandstand and then pushing people back who are pushing them. I've seen them do nothing more but stand there when people have absolutely been giving them abuse. And when the public order units are in a line having metal fences thrown at them and having their lungs burst by people jumping on them and their lung punctures and broken arms, which occurred, 20 police officers injured. When the officers are in the line hitting the sticks at these people are like, there you go, police assault abuse. This is how far back we are. This is how naive society is in this country. I really think they've had it too soft for too long. And I think there's too many people out there who think if you just speak nicely to these people, they'll be fine. There's no need to do this. I've had them say that. Yes, but I've been a good go-between between conflicting partners, and they've all sort of understood. I get this on Twitter. I just have to walk away because some people are nasty people and they want to smash your skull in. And that is not the time for negotiation at that point. Somebody got really upset and they're still whittling away on Twitter because look at this. Tell me this isn't abusive position. And a police officer, it was during the riots in Bristol, and he goes up to this group of people and says, right, I've told you, you need to go away or you could get arrested. We're journalists. And they were like school children in the background. We're journalists. Now, you're either a journalist, where you do a journalism degree and you get, brought in. But those days are sort of going. You still get that. But anyone can pretty much call them a journalist nowadays, and they can print off something. Basically, they haven't had that training for being unbiased, being, sort of giving that independent review of what's going on. A lot of them have an agenda anyway, and they're working on behalf of, as some journalists do now anyway, of course, on the far left or the far right. So you can see, so that's the worst. This guy came across and he was quite sort of, he was quite assertive. He wasn't rude. Guys, he said, you need to go home or you'll get arrested. And they made a big fuss about this. Yes, and we got an apology from the Avon Somerset Police. I do worry about that because there's people who are too political in the police and they're not practical, and they are dumping on their frontline resources who are having to make decisions, hard decisions on the spot. They see a group of people over there who were interfering slightly with what was going on. And I've been very pro-journalist in my policing life. Absolutely, I have. I've accommodated them, and I find that they are very accommodating if you assist them, all right? But the trouble is we do, and so they've seen this. Why are they so upset? Why are they demanding an apology? You're in a blooming riot. You might expect some police officers to think that confuse you for members of the public who are just waiting to get a kick in when they can. But there's too many of these journalists all around London who are little scroats, quite frankly, and they're not real journalists. They call themselves journalists, and they've got it on their thing. And this is the problem that police are coping with, because suddenly these people think they've got free rein to get in everywhere because they've got a badge that says, used to read Beano, now I'm a journalist type thing. But don't get me wrong, I'm not going against all journalists. I think it's a very good one. I think local press are very good. You're more likely to get the local press. You're going to get far more accurate assessment of what's going on in these sorts of things than you are the national press, because the national press want to know where the money is. Where's the majority of supporting? And if we go against the minority view, like, I support the police, we're not going to do that, because not many people are going to say, well, I'm not listening to you anymore. This is so therapeutic for me. Thank you. I need this session. So PFOA, if you are police officers and you are in the firearms world and you're not a member, be a member of the PFOA. I was, and I get little lanyards and Gucci stuff like that. But it also means that you get extra assistance if involved in a shooting or not even a shooting. I mean, anything that you're involved in with your work, and you get that extra assistance that is there, which was invaluable. PFOA, DM me some stuff, and I'll put another push out for it on my Twitter account. If you don't follow me on my Twitter account, you need to do that. It's really important. You need to do that. There we go. That's my Twitter account, XARVSGT. X means I used to be somebody, now I'm not. ARV, unresponsive vehicle, SGT. So are you watching that corrupt police drama? Keep forgetting the name of it. I don't watch it, you see. I don't watch it. But they're talking about these 3-letter abbreviations. And I never went to the TLS course. The TLS course is the 3-letter abbreviations to teach the police all the abbreviations that need. No, I'm only joking. That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen, okay? So let's go back. Let's go back to comments. I'm very surprised I don't get any abuse here. Very surprised. The bill includes for full Fed membership for specials. Bloody about time. Very vulnerable as a special guy. I was a special constable once upon a time for 3 years before I joined the police. And that was about 1 million and 3 years ago. And protection for emergency response drivers, that they will not be held to standards, careful and competent drive. Right, and that was the problem with the driving at the moment, because police officers are not differentiated, if that's a word, from civilian drivers, normal drivers, you and me now, my mother, okay? And so when police officers were involved in pursuits, and following all their training, their experience, breaking no rules, and then say that car they're pursuing just crashes, quite rightly there's an investigation. The police officer would then get stuck on for dangerous driving. Or do you care? Because they weren't allowed to take their driving. They were saying, well, technically, if he was driving dangerously, so was the police officer behind, which was poppycock. Because what happens is when you've got a car you're pursuing, and I've done many, many of these, you're constantly thinking, they might be driving quite dangerously on one bit, but then they're in open road. So you go, okay, I'm letting go now, because if he's just going red light, blind corners all the time, just abort the pursuit. It's not worth it, because he's going to kill someone. It's not worth it. But there's many pursuits up until, again, the last week. Pretty much the last week of my job, I was pursuing a car around Torbay for 40 minutes late at night. And if they ended up hurting someone, it's there for the grace of God whether I ended up in court. I'm relying on them to keep me out of court. And 100 police officers were in court the last minute I checked, due for court. And when they got to court, and this was after like 2 or 3 years of misery, their careers on hold, not wondering whether they're going to lose their license, get prosecuted for it, they'd found not guilty, because the jury or the judge are going, what the hell are you doing in here? So that is all that law is saying. It's not giving carte blanche to pursue little scroats out there. It's to let the judge or let the CPS decide, okay, are they following the training and so on and so forth? Because if you've got someone who's driving there haven't followed the training, they're just driving red mist, driving out through all the red lights, then they deserve to get what they get, don't they, if they're police officers? But that happens very rarely, because the training usually gets that out of them, you see. So thank you, James Hibbert. You're a star. You have educated me on that, because someone bothered to read it properly. So thank you. Stephen B, what have we got? I'm 23 and being in an ARV in the Met is my career goal. Can you provide any info on the current requirements to get into armed response, such as minimum service application process? Look, it varies and it changes. At the moment, they're not only short of police officers, they're short of ARVs. Because ARVs is a 13-week basic course, whichever force you take. That's the best thing about all this training. The driving, ARVs, the whole lot, all the training and policing. That's the one good thing that college policing does do. Slight tongue-in-cheek, but yeah, is they nationalise all this stuff. So everyone is of the same standard. And yet, Devon and Cornwall and people like them are better than the Met, because the Met don't have to be advanced drivers. So the Devon and Cornwall do, because they're dual-wielded traffic and they have to go vast distances, and they're much more usually likely to be involved in jobs where they're traffic orientated. So they had to be advanced drivers as well. So 13-week basic firearms course. You've just got to be a good copper at that. For the qualifications, if you've got as a police officer and you've sort of been noticed and you're interested, and I would say to you, make it known. Yeah, I'm willing to, I'd like to get into the RVs. Don't be too loud about it, because seasoned response officers might look at you going, he's not even here to be a copper. He just wants to carry a gun and drive a car. And you don't want to fall out with people. So maybe just subtly, when you're actually getting a name for yourself, getting, and decent, and then just, do you know what? The day's assessments initially for the ARVs where people fall down is because of their personal safety. They walk up to someone and hands are in their pockets like this, or they're on their chest and they're talking to someone, where you'll learn that you just got to be left posture. If I just get rid of, sorry, Stephen, you just got to be sort of left posture like this, and you go, yeah, no problem, like that. But it means you've got your elbow, you've got your punch, and you if you're pushed, you're not going to stumble back, because my back leg is further back. That left posture, I again did from day one I was taught it to the last day. It looks casual. It's not. You're not like that. You're sort of, yeah, no problem. Just calm down. Yeah, I'm just going to search you. Yeah, and you're doing your searches of your body searches correctly. You're doing your vehicle set, and then you're sort of experienced in policing. You'll know what level to go in, whether it's sort of straight up there and you're tasering somebody. Because you've got to go in and somebody's just about to get a mallet on their head, sort of thing. And if you're firearms officers, you could consider even worse, because that mallet comes down on that head, they're dead, aren't they? So it's that, you might think of just literally Glock at that point. Better to be judged by 12 than carried by 6, as they say. So that's the sort of advice I give you. Be a bloody good copper first and be good at the basics. Be fit, be healthy, be proactive, be positive. No one wants an oxygen, like an atmosphere. What are they called? People who just go into a room and absorb all the atmosphere, and it looks especially if you've been in 5 minutes. You've got to wait until you've been in 30 years, and then you can moan all through English. But I wasn't. You've got to look at the best bits. Annoyingly positive I was. Freaking hell. I'm going to annoy myself, believe me. 7:30 already. Okay. In requirements to get in the armed response. Yeah, that's it. So there's not any extra exams or anything like that. It does vary, but usually it's just basically an A4 piece of paper to show when you're being a police officer, to show your interest. Then you might get an application process, which is where you have to show where you've used your skills, whatever. That's a pain in the neck, that is. And then you just go on these used to be a 3-day assessment. I don't know if it still is, or sometimes it's a day if they're really hard. But they realize if they shorten the assessments, they've had far more failures on the 13 weeks. Being quite rigid and being strict and having a very high level for that 3-day assessment meant that they had far less, because we're losing more than 50% on a 13-week course. Right, okay. Jacob Pickering, I get why we don't release body-worn video or CCTV straight away because of the investigation. Surely sometimes we need to get it out there when it's relevant to show our officers are in the right thoughts, Harry. Yes, I agree. I think society's moved on. They want instant information. And I think sometimes there's doers and there's beers in every police force. There's people who want to be, same as politicians say, people just want to be a police officer and they want to be chief superintendent police officer, and they'll do anything and say anything and just don't ruffle the feathers, and we need more doers. I wanted to, to do policing, to help the community, to support their staff, to stand at the front saying you don't deserve an apology because of the circumstances there, is your choice. It's a hostile environment and this is where we are. So if the officer doesn't want to apologize, he's not going to apologize. You're not injured, they're not injured, let's move on. It needs some sort of language that is not recognized or appreciated. And you do get some people, brilliant chief constables, like in Northampton, for example. My chief was brilliant. He's brilliant. My Devon and Cornwall, Sean Sawyer, really good, very polite with it, but quite firm. And doesn't pander to this wokey thing. It's really, he supported his staff. If he knew that his staff, and I always said to the people below me, if you're not, I will support you all the way, as long as you're not being malicious, dishonest, and just damn right neglectful. If your intentions were there, I wanted to give them the freedom to make mistakes, had the freedom to be abused on a TV thing because somebody found them arresting a girl, in this time of equality. They thought it was outrageous because she screamed and she hadn't done anything wrong. And I would have backed them all the way because I've got nothing to lose, quite frankly. Whereas if you're desperately wanting to your next promotion and you're looking controversial, that's where the police have got to be. Let's be independent thinkers again. Let's not try to be everything to everyone. That's what I really do think. So body-worn video, I think technically it can be quite difficult sometimes because people are worried about, they release 100 body-worn videos, that's fine, and then they release one they really shouldn't have. That could be career-ending stuff. This is the problem. You breached the data protection, or you showed a face there that you didn't think you could on your school's small screen when you were doing it, but someone's complained now because that relates them to someone else to do something. It's a minefield. And do you know what? It's just easier to say it's one officer who's going to have a bit of trouble for a bit. So we need to change society, which is not the easy bit, to accept. I've always agreed that as well. If you've got politicians, you want them to mess up. And then they'll learn, hopefully. And if they mess up again or they do something similar, then get rid of them. But all this one mistake and they get fired. Who's learning from that? It's ridiculous. But it's this, are you going to resign? Are you going to resign? Instead of using that experience. So I think society's got to change a little bit. We're just waiting for the next bit of gossip and scandal. Thank you, Ethan. My hat is a random selection. Right. Thank you for answering my question. Always wanted to be a police ever since I was a little kid. This channel gives a great insight. Aidan, you're a star, no problem. I applied when I was 10 years old initially to be a police officer. They turned me away at 10. Bloody cheat. I had a lovely letter back, which is why I probably was a police officer since. The best thing I ever did. So all this negative caveat, it's the best job you can ever do. All right, but you just got to go in wise and not take everything personally. Ignore the haters. Haters don't matter. Learn to walk away and laugh. Doesn't matter. All right, it's the little old lady you're helping in a burglary. It's the one that you put a smile on their face. It's the ones who are involved in a quite serious crash, and you just see the stress disappear from them as you then stick your head in, and they go, "It's okay. It's metal and plastic. You can all be replaced. You'll be fine. You get a new insurance for the car. So let's go and deal with you now. All right, we'll just pop you back into the police car where you're safe, and then I'll come back and explain things." And you can see. Oh, that's the bits that all the people who deserve that help. That's where you get that job satisfaction from. And ignore the haters, because they all live in miserable little lives. All the haters, you'll find them. They're all in little. I've been in their houses and their flats and their bedsits, and all the ones who hate. They don't, because they're so negative. They don't progress. They don't take advantage of situations, opportunities. So watch them go by. Just walk past. Thank you. It's an interesting one, this. I think about the Specialist Armed Police Force, Civil Nucleus Constabulary. Do you know what? I'm going to have to go up and visit them if they'll let me one day. I haven't got a warrant card now. That's the problem. I can't just walk into places. They are advertising. I start their advertisement for jobs. I don't really know, because I'll be honest with you, it doesn't sell it to me. I want the variety. I want stuff. They deal with everything on site, so to speak, and whatever. And they've got a very serious job, because we don't want nuclear power stations sort of getting into the wrong hands. I need to be educated on that. But it doesn't sound very exciting to me. So anyone who's been in there, educate me on that, will you? Tell me it was the best thing you did because of whatever, and not because of the amount of different card games you played or anything like that. I mean, I'm being really facetious now, but so I don't really know. Civil Nuclear Constabulary, MOD police, very busy. Anything on rail property, they are very busy, because you'll be popping on trains and going through and sorting, people loose on tracks where they shouldn't be, and damage and suicides, of course, and things like that sort of thing. So very busy MOD police, because you've got such a massive area. I didn't mean that, did I? That's British Transport Police, I thought you were thinking. And I've actually said Ministry, MOD Police. MOD Police as well, then, yeah, I mean, they're pretty busy, because what you've got is a massive, or you did have, bunch of people who tend to celebrate and get drunk a lot, and there's certain things that go on. You get the same when you've got a big bunch of people. It's like having a small village, and everything that goes in the village or a town will happen in these areas. So people get drunk, there will be a sudden death. They will be violent. They'll lose it and have violence. They'll take drugs, and you have to deal with that. So very busy. So not a bad place to go as well. A lot of people go. A few people have been MOD police, RF police, joined civilian police after that side of things. So it's definitely a route as well, or just MOD police, really. That's a good one as well. Okay. With your statement of helping the little old lady, do you think the views on police have changed generally? A lot of youngsters have this view that the police are against them. I think that's always been. People don't like authority. We didn't like it when we were kids, and our parents say, you can't go out tonight. And we're like, what? My mate's going out. And it's only a bigger version of that, where the police are suddenly, you've got COVID rules, and the police is going, no, you can't do that. And you go, well, that's ridiculous. That's just not fair. It's just exactly the same thing. People don't like being told what to do, especially, and I think it's just worse now, is because people are they've got their rights. They've got social media access to people who think the same as them, so they can get advice, not sensible advice, but just to be really awkward and to be stubborn, and then the criminal justice system is a bit rubbish, but it always has been, to be honest. There's not masses of change here. I think the biggest change we've got at the moment is where public perception, because you've got cameras everywhere and it's biased viewpoints the whole time. I can't say, no, I've arrested him because he's wanted for serious sexual assault or paedophilia with a child under 6 years old. I can't tell the camera that. But all the camera see, or his mate who doesn't know he's done this, who sees me going up to him in the street and saying, "All right, so you're under arrest." Well, you haven't done anything. And then the pushing, shoving comes in, and then he ends up on the ground, and it's people come in and say, "What's he done then? What's he done?" I can't really tell them that, and that is a really common thing to have that. And it doesn't matter if he's done for shoplifting. I can't say, well, he's arrested for shoplifting. It's still, I've still got to be quite subtle. I can't just tell everyone, yes, the man I've got has done shoplifting. He's not convicted yet. So public perception, I think, is what it's got to be. I'm not going to panic too much. The problem we're missing, we've got the same society things that have been exaggerated now because of perception, because of media, because of instant social media, YouTube, that side of things. Well, everyone's production team, look at this. But we've got a far smaller police force, a far less experienced police force. There's no longer the golden carrot at the end of a nice fat pension. So people are just going to do it for 10 years and leave. So you can have very young supervisory officers, inexperienced, and that will leave you open. And I think then police officers are going to create more mistakes because they haven't learned from their elders, if you like, because the whole system is going to get younger and younger and younger. And I think we're possibly going to fall, if we're not careful, into where European police forces used to always get criticised because they didn't have the discipline. Because there was a phrase said, I wouldn't bet my pension on that. I wouldn't risk my pension on that. It was a very good thing. Should we go and, should we do this? It'd be laughed. Should we take this car? Because it's a nice, powerful car, and we'll just drive it around the town and bring it back. No one will know, this car you've seized or something. It's just say someone said that. Oh, I'm not going to risk my pension on that. It wouldn't have happened. Could it happen in 5-10 years' time when people go, get caught, I'll just leave. Pays rubbish anyway. That's the problem I see. Youngsters, so police against them. I think possibly a lot from the fact the problem you get if you see a lot of this stuff is, why? What have I done? Well, no. If they were actually civil to police officers, which then I would be very surprised if there were the numbers that felt the same. But it's like, what are you stopping me for? I'm breaking the law. Why you can't touch me? I'm not breaking the law. And my view is, it doesn't matter. This police officer is doing civic duty, and it's your duty to help him, advise him, and then update him with what's going on, even though you're not legally permitted, because you're sure as hell going to take the advantage of the law protecting you when somebody wants to cause you harm. You can't have it both ways. If you want to be independent from the police, then bugger off on Lundy Island and live there and live your own existence. That's fine. Do it. But if you choose to live in a civilized society, I think we owe a bit of civic duty. And if I'm not going to say I was a cop once, because to be honest, I find they're the most annoying people ever. So I've told myself that if I'm stopped in the street or whatever, and I'm saying, I'd go with the full, so it'd be quite interesting to see what happened. I'd be civil. And all the police officers I've worked with, I'd have been astonished if any of them dealt with them any differently. But they're not mugs. They're not going to be treated like absolute idiots. And they go, I'm sorry, sir, we'll be as quick as we can. They're not mugs. They're not there to be abused and insulted. It's experience tells you how you can tell them that in the shortest, most direct form. As always, yeah, that's it, Danny. I think that's it. And that's absolutely they're normal people. It's normal people who join the police, don't get injected with a serum, like I said last week, that suddenly makes them nasty, horrible people who can't treat, and they just want to stop check black people, and they just want to be, they just want to go into their dens and be completely and utterly inappropriate wherever they can. You're going to get it with 130,000 people in a mass of things. And then there was one the other day that, it was like he was a probationer, and people, hey, police officer. Yeah, he's a probationer. Thank God he was found in his first 2 years, So there we go. I think, 9:45. What's the most dramatic, interesting call you went to? I mean, that's got to be the firearms one is always quite good fun. We have a bit of a car located, helicopter above. Helicopter takes us to the man with the gun who's just done 10 years in prison. He's just carjacked the car. And then I'm pointing my gun at him. My mate's pointing his gun at him. And each of us know this is all on video. But it's that cliche that the training kicks in. I've had scenarios. Our firearms training is phenomenal. It's scenario after scenario. It's just like a training thing, you know. The training things, you don't know how their stooge is going to react. You don't know whether they're going to react to your instructions or whether they're just going to blindly go on. Whether they are suffering from mental health, the stooges, whether they're deaf, whether they're autistic. It's how they wanted. The instructors want to see how you deal with it. You shout. It's not working. Well, come down. Try that. Right, come on, friend. You need to do as I can. Can you hear me? You know, and if you get an F off, then you know where you stand, yeah? But if you get that sort of thing, then you think, well, okay, it could be a bit of autism here. And that panic, that sort of reactions. So all these assessments you get, it's vehicle interceptions, building interceptions, foot strikes. And it was literally an inch from whether I shot him or not. The slack was on the trigger. And I knew that would be months and months, or probably 5 years, and then probably a 6-week inquest at the end of it, where I was ripped apart for every millisecond of my decision making. But I was one of these people that just thought, well, you know, as long as I'm happy with what I did, and if you're trained well enough, which you will be, then you're going to act appropriately. You're going to have a very bad day if you suddenly go off on one. Shall we say everyone will? But luckily, it doesn't tend to happen. The dumbest call. Well, where do I start with that? No, I mean, the dumbest call was that there was one where I was with somebody else and said, "Can we have the police here?" And I said, "Oh, what's supposed to we go in?" They said, "We've got massive flooding," and we go there. And this lady was there, and she said, "Look," and there was this tiny drip that was coming through. And my colleague said, "Madam, can you just come to the window?" And she said, "Yeah, sure." He says, "See that on that card? Do you know what it says?" She said, "Well, yeah, that's your police card." He said, "That's right. It doesn't say plumber. It says police." I didn't know where to look. So clearly, because we went there expecting to be this torrent of water coming through that they didn't know what to do. There was maybe a life risk where, because I did go in Plymouth once, 56-inch mains. Now that 56 inch is like the width of this room. It's like freaking enormous. High pressure water took six foot of earth and tarmac out, and all these cars were floating down, and masses of houses were swamped. So that's what I thought it would be a little bit, but I'm sure there's loads more dumb ones than that, to be honest. But people think I'm being unreasonable there. But she was dealt with very nice, and it was sort of quite politely tongue-in-cheek, shall we say. It does say, you know, and she did see the funny side, but gave her advice to call a plumber, but there was nothing we could instantly do there. Thank you. Sorry, I carry out the such quickly because you're a bit of a rush. Yes, yeah, that's right, Denny, yeah. See, guilty people and people who have got things to hide tend to be controversial, to be upright. What are you doing? Why they want to, especially if you're an inexperienced officer, they want to fluster you. No one likes confrontation. I'm going to complain. This is again. And, you know, an experience will say, well, why are they so anti it? Is this usual, or is it because they've got a pocket full of drugs or a sock full of drugs or whatever? Or maybe they're just wanted, you know? So it's that. And I say to you, just take a deep breath and enjoy. You go, "I'm sorry, so I'm going to need your name and address to check on this system because you've been stopped because of this, blah, blah, blah. I need to check, you know. I'm not giving you a name and address." Well, unfortunately, so you leave me no alternative. I have to arrest you to determine your name and address back at the police station in order that if there are any offences that occur, then things serving of a summons can get that sort of thing. But you keep that nice and calm, and then they soon realise that they're on a loser there. And people will say, "Oh, that's rubbish." No, that's absolutely right. Is that VLJ? Yeah, VLJ Stone. That's absolutely right. try it. So I'd say to those people who say, "Oh, I've been told this," try it. I know it works. Maybe a bit more in school, more police, because we did have neighbourhood police officers in schools, and so you get youngsters who are growing up through puberty, going, their adolescence, starting beers, things, and they'd always think, "Oh yeah, Jim, we had Jim at school. He was a nice guy. He was, yeah." And all their mates now, and they're growing up, and it's quite cool to hate the police. And they say, "Yeah, all they're pigs, aren't they? Yeah, all these pigs, you got nothing to do. Yeah, look at this YouTube thing of this copper picking on this girl, And it's also, but then in the back of their mind, they know, well, Jim was all right. He wouldn't have done that. That was useful. And then the cuts, there were 50,000 staff, that's 30,000 civilians, 20,000 cops. All that work had to be done by someone else. And of course, they took them out of the schools because that was just an extra. They didn't think so. We've lost a lot. We need to put it in. And the Conservatives are very well saying we're backing up the, we're backing the police. And all that. No, they're just desperately trying to put a plaster on stuff they destroyed, absolutely destroyed. With Theresa May, when we were saying, "Don't do it," and she did it. And guess what happened? And then so all this, yes, we've got 6,000 police officers. Have you seen how many are leaving out the back door? Experienced, who've had enough of the media, had enough of these protests turning up, lack of resources, lack of training. There's a lot of work to be done. There really is a lot of work to be done to get it right. We will finish at 8 o'clock. I never think it's going to be enough, but I always can't leave your questions unanswered here. Speaking of interesting scenarios, did you see the video of the AFO muzzle striking a suspect through the window with a... Yeah, I did. I'd be very reserved about that because I don't know if there's... because you don't want it going off, do you? We had different systems that we had. If we were doing vehicle strikes and all that, we did have glass smashing stuff on our tunics, on our QRVs easily at hand. I hate to criticize without knowing the whole facts and things. Or I'd say it would be frowned upon if it was involved in a training scenario, but I don't know the specific circumstances there. I mean, he may have said it's so dark in there, I can't see what's going on. I haven't got a smashy glassy thing, and I'm going to have to do this. So I think, and most, yeah. So I don't know. Maybe was he SF? Was he an SFO or something? Was he ARV? Because I think if it's SFO, I don't know if they've got a special thing on the front, but I doubt it. Doubt it very much. So yeah, not my choice. So senior officer in Bristol, okay, who defended the lack of action when the statue ended in the river hasn't been seen after the riot. Wonder if he's been, well, we don't know, but it's sort of anything you've got to do has got to be achievable. But there was a lot of stuff around that, wasn't it? There was a bit of warning and whatever, and it sends a terrible message, doesn't it? You've got to stand strong, but you've got to stand strong with the ability to back it up, You've got to, you're not going to go, I'm not going to go into a bar fight on my own and say, right, I'm taking you all on, get a posthumous award for stupidity. What would you pick out of these two? Armed in a train station or being armed in the airport police force? Nothing. I wouldn't. I would prefer LVs. Evening, Harry. What would you recommend for a young person to do before joining? Have a little listen, Horizon Cobra, at the beginning of this, because I do go into this a little bit, and there's some advice there. So have a look there, my friend, and good luck to you, Chief Superintendent, before you know it. Not sure the messages are on scene, so it was presumed to. Oh, okay, right, okay. Especially if you can remember, you get spontaneous farms jobs and you get pre-planned farms jobs. So with pre-planned, you can have all your resources and assets in the right place. You can have, you've got your medics kit right there. You've got an ambulance on standby. You've got your door washers. You've got your contingencies. You've got an ARV around the corner in case there's a breakout and they get out in the car. You've got everything there. It's spontaneous with like 5-minute warning, AMPR, car's just gone through, wanted for this. Believed armed and dangerous, 4 subjects, blah, blah, blah. and you've got one ARV there, we're going to, right, where's the other resources? Is there a helicopter? Do we have dogs available? Has this been authorized from above? And let it all go. And then farms tactics will be involved or whatever. But if it's happening in front of you like that, you've got to take your initiative. You self-farm, you get out there, you challenge, and you deal with it. And that, again, scenarios will help you to get used to that and to make those split-second decisions. Did you ever consider doing your inspector's exam? Yeah, my dad, who is a current ARV traffic and close protection sergeant, is starting to revise for his inspector's exam in October. I wonder if Ryan, yeah, because I did all of that then. Didn't do the inspector's exam. I'm a little bit stupid, to be honest. I just can't be asked with all that exam stuff. Sergeant's exam, I passed first time. I think probably luck rather than judgment. I had to work very hard at it. I don't really enjoy learning stuff like that. I far more enjoy being out on the ground. I'm far more practical person. I'm very much a 3D type person. I realized I was a better sergeant than I was a PC. Because PCs, I'd look around, they were phenomenal police constables, real thief takers. They trip over, criminals and wanted people left, right, and centre. And I'd really have to work at it. But then I realised that I was much better at leading small team of people out on the street, getting the motivation up, looking after their backsides, basically, so that they felt confident that I wasn't going to do their legs in, that I was there with them, we were there side by side, and we were going to crack on with this job. And when it was real low, when people were tired and they were low, I'd get everyone together and we'd finish the job together and all that sort of thing. So, and that I found I was better. As inspectors, I probably wouldn't have been very good because you tend to be a lot more strategic, more sort of, you've got projects to do, you've got to answer above. In fact, you don't get a fast car and a gun very often if you're an inspector. And that's what I enjoyed most. So good luck to your dad. It is, the money's better, obviously, the pension's better as well. But so I can see that. But I didn't want to leave a job I loved to do a job that I didn't love as well. And I thought, I'm not relying on living forever in my pension, thinking I'm glad I was an inspector and I had a rubbish life, working life. But then some people, it's the time. It's the time to do that. Ex-infantry. Good. We get quite a few of these, which is good. Hi, Harry. Any advice for an ex-infantry soldier starting training next month? End goal is ARV. You've done the hard work already, my friend. Well done for achieving what you've got, Danny. You've got discipline. You know about turning up on time. You know about looking smart. You know about attention to detail is so important that it affects everyone else. So you're not going to have to be young and naive and learn that on the go. And I don't mean that, you know what I mean. I was young and naive. There's nothing wrong with that. It just, you haven't experienced very much, and therefore it's hard to take that from experience. So yeah, Danny, no, I haven't got advice. You're going to find it slightly easier because you're going to use that natural sort of when you're dealing with confrontational scenarios in your assessments and things. You probably go, yeah, you're a little bit maturer. You've got that fatherly sort of thing about you, even if you're late 20s sort of thing, because you've been in the military or, and that side of things. You've been around the lads and you've been where you're making those decisions, whether you should be doing something, shouldn't be doing something. So no advice, just enjoy it and well done for achieving what you've done so far. Just advice is just do everything the best way you possibly can and you'll get noticed. And ignore the haters. Then they're irrelevant. Chief Superintendent, nice one. Yeah, well, that's it, Horizon. Don't disappoint me now. Don't disappoint me. I'll check back. 10 years I'll give you. All right. Ash, how are you, Ash? Lovely to see you, my friend. And look, we've got 1 minute left. I got to deal with a grudge first. JDA, I've got a bit of a grudge against ARVs. In my first 6 months, an AFO gave me a good spraying with CS in the middle of a mass brawl. I hope the brawl was worth it. I've been in the middle of a mass brawl as well. So I didn't start it, and I doubt you did as well, unless you're going to say you are now. But I think he's considering going down the route of control room inspector for... See, that would be fun. That is fun. Forcing to manage your role. Okay, I'm with him there. If I was going to do something, that would be the best. That is dynamic, instant decision-making, high-end decision-making, life and death. Pursuits, firearms incidents, very vulnerable, lost people, missing people, that side of things. So good skills on it. I bet the shifts will fly. So, and probably in the firearms side of things, yeah, after 21 years of operational firearms, there you go. What a perfect, get the man promoted. And the AFOs will love it when he's in there, because he'll have a much more open viewpoint of firearms incidences, thinking practically, and it's going to be a whole lot easier, I think, really. So good on him. I hope he does well. What's AFO? AFO is Authorised Firearms Officer. So any police officer with a gun is called an Authorised Firearms Officer, because they're authorised to have that, believe it or not. Any officer who's nicked a gun is running around with is an unauthorised. No, I'm joking. So an ARV is an armed response vehicle, and you put an AFO into an ARV, and then you've got two AFOs into an ARV. You've got two Authorised Firearms Officers in an armed response vehicle, unless you're in the Met, and you have three, because one's like the driver, and the other two are doing the maps and the other stuff they do in the Met. So the thing that's slightly confusing is they'll call me, I was an ARV officer. So I wasn't an AFO, because an AFO covers everything. And it's a bit like saying, so yeah, I'm a person, whereas ARV officer is a bit like saying I'm a British person. Do you know what I mean? It's just, it ties you down. That's where it is. I'm planning on joining. Good. Speak more next week, because that's good. Danny, I'm not gonna put that out, because in case it's a spoiler. And just going to finish off, I think, with this. What's this one? Yeah, the force. He's in the same structure as Dorset, Devon, and Cornwall, so in a similar way. Yeah, that's right. I mean, we are an alliance. We're not merged. All the mergers seem to have ended in divorces, or they don't seem to be good. I think we got away with being just sharing a few departments and things like that. That's an alliance. And last of all is Ben. Yes, training is phenomenally hard, very stressful. You just have to, a bit like climbing a mountain, you just need to just get to that bit in front of you. Don't look at the top of the mountain, because it will put you off. It's very tough, but just do it step by step, and it's either for you or it isn't, you know. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much you always surprise me how much fun this is, because I must admit, when I was coming onto this, thinking, I haven't got the energy, I'm really tired. And I didn't know what I was going to talk about, and it was stuff like that. And, you know, I think it's just a day of negative Twitter. You know what I mean? So if there is this thing, you can get, what I'm doing is, like, for $9.99, you get much cheaper on the Amazon, $7.99 or something. For $9.99, if you do that email, firearmsandfatals@gmail.com, contact me on there, and I'll do a personal signed copy to you for $9.99, and I'll make £3 for that. Woo! That's why I make £3. So that's that one. And there, yeah, please follow me on Twitter on that side of things. But otherwise, thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you next week. Oh, yes, actually, just before you go, will you just consider having a look at Frontline Chat, which is another one I do with Dave Wardell from Finn's Law fame. I'm just going to put this up on screen very quickly. And then we interview several guests. This one is John Taylor, who was a former mounted cop in the Met. So anything about horses and stuff like that, man. So that's 4:00 every Saturday. If you go on Frontline Chat, hashtag Frontline Chat, one word, and you'll see us. It's another YouTube channel I've got. It'd be lovely to see you there. And in the meantime, I think we'll call that a day. Thank you so much indeed, everyone. Stay safe out there, and don't let the buggers get you down, no? Cheers.